Hello friends, if you're new, why don't you take a minute to go down and click the subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss any episodes. For my fans and subscribers, welcome back. I really do appreciate the patronage. Today I'm going to be talking about Yahweh versus Baal. Let's go! Just a little note before we get started. Sometimes I will pronounce his name Baal, sometimes I will pronounce his name Baal. I am an American, but I was taught by a British dude, and the British pronounce his name Baal, and Americans pronounce it Baal. So I go back and forth. In the OT, the name Baal appears 58 times in the singular and 19 times in the plural. Before the Ugaritic texts were discovered, archaeologists opined that the Baals are referred to Canaanite deities, each with a local identity. However, with the Ugaritic texts, we now know that Baal was originally an epithet that became a personal name of the great cosmic deity Hadad. The Baals were simply local manifestations of this deity. On occasion, the Baals might refer generally to the Canaanite gods, particularly those of the cult of Molech. The term usually refers to different manifestations of one god. In the Old Testament, some manifestations were attached to places, like Baal Gad. Recent studies of place names with a Baal component suggest that these arose in Canaan at about the same time the Israelites occurred. In addition, some Baal epithets are not limited to a particular sanctuary. Interestingly, Beelzebub is a distortion of Prince Baal. Also of interest is that Beelzebub appears in the New Testament as Beelzebub. Yes, as in that Beelzebub. The Beelzebub that the Jews said was the prince of demons. The Old Testament makes it clear that it was primarily the Baal cult that most threatened the development of a Yahweh-only religion in ancient Israel. Not only was Israel surrounded by Canaanites, Baal was an agricultural god whose specialty was in the influence of rain. So many Israelites worshipped Baal for the sake of the crops. In the divided monarchy, Jezebel, daughter of King of Sidon, married Ahab, and both worshipped Baal. This set the stage for the story about the confrontation between Elijah and Baal's prophets in 1 Kings 18. Ahab certainly did not see Baal worship opposing Yahweh worship, as he apparently worshipped Yahweh also. Both of his sons bear Yahwistic names. Ahab's son, Ahaziah, also worshipped Baal, even consulting him about illness. The Bible says that Ahab's other son, Jehoram, turned away from Baal, but the Deuteronomist still lists him as an evil king. However, Baal worship persisted, as can be seen in 2 Kings 10. According to this chapter, Jehu massacred the priests of Baal, his prophets, and his worshippers, as well as destroying his temple. The Bible later tells us that in Hosea 1:4, the prophet condemned this act. 2 Kings also points to Manasseh as worshipping Baal, but King Josiah put an end to the cult. Both Hosea and Jeremiah were the most worked up by Baal worship. Thus, it is surprising that other canonical prophets do not mention Baal, even when they condemn syncretism. The only reference to Baal in the Post-Exilic Period is in Zechariah 12:11, which refers to the cult of Hadad Rimmon in Megiddo. I should also mention that Antiochus IV Epiphanes dedicated the Jerusalem temple in 168 BCE to Zeus Olympios, a Hellenized force of Baal Shemim. It is important to remember that Baal is also an epithet for this next point. Yahweh is equated with Baal in Hosea 2:16, and in that day declares the Lord, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my Baal. That is the English Standard Version. Hosea goes on to say that God will remove the names of the Baals from the people's mouths. We can deduce from these verses that Hosea was not simply objecting to the epithet of Baal being applied to Yahweh, but he was speaking about the people's tendency to conflate Baal with Yahweh. The hostility to Baal in favor of Yahweh intensified from the 9th century, the time of Elijah and Jezebel. Who was Jezebel's Baal? Most scholars agree that he is not the Baal who appears most in the Old Testament, but the Baal of Tyre, who was the storm god and essentially the Ugaritic Baal. Since local Baals were simply local manifestations of the universal Baal, we can see that Jezebel's Baal was simply the Baal of Mount Carmel. Because this Baal was worshipped by the Canaanites and syncretistic Israelites, we can understand how he gained such a following. The issue of Baal versus Yahweh comes to the fore in 1 Kings 18, where Yahweh supposedly wins a contest at Mount Carmel. If you aren't familiar with the story, Yahweh rains fire from heaven. This is followed by rain after a long drought, so we should understand the fire as lightning. Both lightning and rain were Baal's spheres of influence. Abomination of Desolation, found in Daniel 9:27, 11:31, and 12:11, is not an image but an altar. This information can be found in 1 Maccabees 1:54 and 59. The Hebrew word for abomination would have been substituted for Baal, in keeping with the tradition that this replaced all pagan gods' names. Desolation would have replaced Shamim, or heavens. In Hebrew, this is understood as wordplay, since the Hebrew words for desolation and heavens were so similar. Such a distortion of Baal's name fits with other deliberate malformations of any deity but Yahweh. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, and PayPal links are in the description along with the source that I used for this episode. If you wish to support this channel, you may do so on my PayPal link. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.